The VapePassion Show, episode 36. Welcome back to the VapePassion Show. This is episode 36. I'm recording this on Sunday, October 2nd. Had a good weekend so far. On Friday, I went to a beer tour at Great Divide Brewery in Denver, Colorado. That was a lot of fun. It was something that my work did for a group of us, and I'm a really big fan of Great Divide Brewery. They have a lot of really good beers. And then this morning we just got back from the flea market. I take my daughter to the flea market probably once a month, I think. And that was a lot of fun. It's pretty warm out there still, so it feels good to be back in the house where it's nice and cool. And what seems to have become my normal routine when I do these shows now, I am pairing beer with an e-juice before I get started. So this week I have a graham cracker porter. This is from Denver Beer Company, and I've had this one before. It's actually pretty good, but I've already poured it, and I already have an e-juice paired with it using the Pairwise app again, like always. I paired it with Rogue. This is the Black River line from DIYVaporSupply.com. So this is an ice cream on top of apple pie flavor. And I've reviewed this before, and it's pretty good. So let's give that one a try right now. It's an okay pairing. I think it probably would have been better if I had a stronger apple, but it's not bad. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll notice I've got a different camera angle, and that's because, I just want to try something different, and I don't want to be focused on the camera. Sometimes it distracts me, so I want to see how it works out where I'm just not paying attention to the camera at all this time. All right, so let's just jump right into it. So the first one I want to talk about is this campaign called Thunderclap. Thunderclap is a crowd speaking platform designed to amplify messages that matter to people. So in this case, this one was set up by the Vapor Technology Association, the VTA, and all you need to do is sign up. They'll automatically post a message to one of your social media accounts on October 27th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And that's the meaning behind this crowd speaking platform, Thunderclap. A thunderclap means it happens all at once. So this message is going to go out all over social media for everybody who's signed up. And you can choose to post the message on Twitter, Facebook, or Tumblr. And the message will say, "Vapor is under attack. Join the hashtag WeAreVapor campaign and tell Congress to hashtag support Cole Bishop." And then it has a link to the page that directs you to the VTA website. It directs people to post an image of you in front of your favorite vape shop and to tag your state elected officials. They have a search engine on that page where you can find who your elected officials are in your state, so you can tag them. And this whole campaign, it's designed to raise awareness of what's happening to the vape industry right now and to increase support of the Cole Bishop Amendment to save vaping. So I've gone ahead and scheduled posts to go out on my social media channels, and I think this is a really interesting idea, and I really hope that we get to see this as a trending hot topic on social media on October 27th, because just imagine the people that we could reach with this message if it gets noticed by people outside of our industry. It's a really cool idea, and I'm excited to see that happen. All right, and then I have some news for what's happening in Pennsylvania. So for anyone who doesn't know what's happening in Pennsylvania, they passed a vape tax that was due to go into effect on October 1st, which will have happened by the time you watch this episode. And so this tax is a 40% tax on all vape products, which is not at all affordable for any vape shop in the state. But what makes it worse is that legislators somehow made it so that the tax is retroactive, meaning vape shops have to pay a 40% tax on products that they already have in stock. And this is just ridiculous, because these are products that these shops have already paid for and have already paid taxes on, but now the state wants them to pay an additional 40% tax on top of that. It's just crazy. Lawmakers have given vape shops 90 days after October 1st to come up with the money, but it's just totally not affordable to most vape shops. But there is a bill, HB 2342, which vapors in Pennsylvania are now trying to get passed to replace that 40% tax bill. This bill would create a 5 cents per milliliter tax on e-liquid, which still sucks, but it's doable, and would allow most shops to stay in business. The state's House Finance Committee voted 19-4 to replace that 40% tax bill, but that bill still needs to reach the House floor to be passed and finalized. So there's still work that needs to be done on that. There have been rallies in the past week at the state capitol in hopes that HB 2342 can be passed. If you live in Pennsylvania, CASA.org has a petition up that you can still sign in support of HB 2342. You can just go to their website, CASA.org, and do a search on there. You should be able to find it. I'll also have a link in the show notes. So more than 60 vape shops now have gone out of business out of 400 in the state of Pennsylvania due to this tax. So getting HB 2342 passed won't help those businesses or the employees who have already lost their jobs, but hopefully this bill will prevent more jobs from being lost. So yeah, if you live in Pennsylvania, support that one. All right, and now I want to talk about a new app on the iPhone and coming to Android soon. It's called VapeBlock. So you can go to vapeblock.com to read more about it, or just if you have an iPhone, you can download the app. So Ben, one of the co-founders of grandvaporstation.com, reached out to me to let me know that they just released this mobile app. This is the first mobile vape app where vapors can purchase directly from the brand manufacturer. The app is called VapeBlock and is available on iPhone and will be out on Android really soon. So they have big brands that only do wholesale sales, like Ruthless or Craft, CRFT, and other businesses who are now selling direct to consumers only through this app because they really believe in that platform. They'll also be doing things like VapeBlock exclusives, where manufacturers can offer exclusive releases only available through the app. You can also follow your favorite brands on the app, kind of like you would on Instagram, and you can see updates of new products they are releasing. They're also accepting new brands on the app, so if you are a premium hardware or e-juice supplier and want to get your brand in front of vapors who are ready to buy, definitely check it out. It could be a pretty good business move because, I mean, so many people are buying on mobile these days. So when I'm looking at the app, one of the first things that I noticed is that the app has only premium brands, which means this isn't really for the budget vapor. The tagline on their website says, premium brands, one app. So I don't know if there are plans to include any budget brands or budget e-juices, but it doesn't sound like it. I've also noticed that most products are e-juice, but there are a few hardware products showing up here and there. But you have to keep in mind that the app was just launched, so it's still in its infancy and will probably grow a lot over the next couple of weeks or months. I actually think this is really cool. One of my favorite brands is Ruthless, but they aren't always easy to find because they only sell wholesale. But they are listed in the app, and so now I can buy Ruthless whenever I want. And if you look in the deals section or the sales section, they have some good deals in there too. For example, I saw a 30 ml of Kilo's Key Bear yogurt for only $12. Which is pretty good considering that Kilo normally costs like, $24, something like that for a 30 mil. So about half off. That's a really good deal, I think. You still have to verify your ID like you would any other online purchase. You just take a picture of your ID using the app and then you're good to go. I haven't actually made a purchase through this app yet, just because I have enough e-juice. I don't need to buy anything right now, but I do plan to purchase something through there eventually. But it looks like a pretty cool app. All right, now let's talk about some science and research stuff. So Uwell, the vape manufacturer Uwell, they just released the results of a study they did on 3 different ceramic coils from 3 different brands. They looked at these coils through a microscope and found that each one was producing crystal silica powder, which is similar to glass and is dangerous to inhale. Based on their findings, they decided not to move forward with making their own ceramic coils. Pretty crazy study they did. It's not hugely scientific. They mostly just looked at different coils through a microscope and made their own assumptions based on what they saw. But according to Uwell, they say that using a ceramic coil can cause trachea and lung damage, and that ceramic powder can cause cancer if it's not removed from the lungs. They also say that it's impossible to clean these powders that are stuck to the inner surface of the ceramic coil, and that these powders are on the inside of all ceramic coils on the market. The report from Uwell also says that with ceramic coils, high pressure is created while vaping, which expands and damages the structure of the ceramic material, and that causes loose powders to fall off and go into the lung. They then close out the report with a warning of lung disease called silicosis, which is caused by inhalation of crystalline silica dust. And silicosis, that can cause severe health issues and even death. It's a pretty scary report, and people are calling for more research to be done on this, especially since Uwell didn't provide any citations. They didn't release any data on how much dust they detected. And some people are thinking they could be trying to damage the reputation of their competitors. I don't get that feeling from the study. I sure hope that's not what they're doing. I did see some comments on Reddit about this study. One, for example, from an engineering student who is currently in a material science class. he said that he'd never choose any type of ceramic wicking material to inhale from, based on what he's learned in school. He said that all ceramics are inherently brittle because of how the molecules bond, and it tends to break into tiny little crystals. It's not a factor of poor manufacturing, it's just a bad idea from the get-go. I saw another comment from someone saying that OSHA guidelines for limits of inhalation of crystalline silica is 50 micrograms per 8 hours. We don't know how much silica dust is actually being produced by ceramic coils, so it might be possible that this is a non-issue, but someone else also responded to that comment, noting that you'd only need a tiny portion of ceramic wick to deteriorate to be exposed to those levels. So it is very possible that using a ceramic coil could far exceed those OSHA guidelines. When ceramic wicks really started getting popular in, the last year or so, several people, reviewers for example, brought up the potential health concerns after seeing how these wicks just fall apart and turn into dust in their hands. Rip Trippers did a video actually where he took a look at the coil and it just crumbled in his hands. So it's now looking like some of those concerns actually might be valid. I've never actually used ceramic coils myself, but I had thought about buying a tank that uses ceramic coils because I always hear people talking about how good the flavor is out of a ceramic coil. But now after hearing this report, I think I'll probably skip ceramic just to play it safe. Who knows? This might actually turn out to be completely unfounded, but I don't feel the need myself to experiment, so I'm just gonna skip it. I'm not gonna mess around with ceramic coils. And then let's see, Mooch, Battery Mooch, he just recently put up a post on the electronic cigarette subreddit and on electronic cigarette forum. If you don't know who Mooch is, I talk about him a lot, so you should if you're a regular listener of the show. But he's the guy who tests all of the batteries that people use in their vapes. He posted a request on Reddit and Electronic Cigarette Forum for support of his GoFundMe campaign. The reason being that most of the equipment that he uses to test batteries is equipment that he needs for his real job, and all of that equipment now needs to go back to being used for client work. So he's asking for financial donations to purchase a setup that can be used solely for testing batteries for the vape community. He's trying to reach a goal of $8,000 on GoFundMe, and at the time of this recording, he's nearly at $6,000. So he's very close. You can find his GoFundMe page at gofundme.com/helpbatterymooch, or you can donate directly to his PayPal account at paypal.me/batterymooch. Mooch spelled M-O-O-C-H. He also set up a page on ecigaretteforum.com so that he can be completely transparent about how the funds are being spent. So if you have any concerns about donating money and where it's going, you can just check out that page and find out where he's using it. Mooch is a very trustworthy guy, and I wouldn't assume that he would be using it in any unwise ways. I'll have links to all of these things in the show notes as well if you want to go donate. All right, and then in some sad news, a man in El Cajon, California was shot and killed by police after he pointed his vape at officers. So according to reports, Alfred Olongo suffered from mental illness. He was having some sort of episode, and the police were called on Olongo by his sister, asking for help. Olongo, according to the reports, ignored instructions from officers, and at some point he placed his hands in his pockets, pulled out his mod, which turned out to be a Pioneer for You vape with a smoked TFV mini tank. He took a shooting stance and acted as if his vape was a gun. The officers shot and killed him at that point. So this one is interesting to me because when I first started vaping, one of the first things that I thought about in regards to vaping in public was that my vape could be confused for a gun or a weapon of some sort. And I've actually always been very careful about how I hold my mod when I'm walking around in public for that exact reason, and especially when I see a police car. If I see a cop, I won't even pull out my vape. And with cops being on edge as much as they are these days, I just don't trust it, and I don't risk it. I know that some people will probably disagree with that, but I don't need to vape all the time, and I don't need anyone to confuse my vape for being a gun. So I've actually always wondered. Sometimes I'm walking through my neighborhood, and I wonder if anyone sees me holding it in my hands, thinking that it might be a gun, and maybe calling the cops on me. You never know. I think about that all the time. But yeah, that's really sad news for that guy and his family. All right, now let's talk some tips and tricks. This one is going to be a little bit more technical than some of you might like. I don't know. Some of you might really like technical stuff. So this one is about slow ramp-up time on mech mods. So I saw a thread on e-cigarette forum where someone was asking why he was getting such a slow ramp-up time on his mech mod with a new coil build. And this is actually something that I see a question pop up all the time. And it was actually a question that I had myself when I first started getting into mech mods. And I actually think I did post that question on e-cigarette forum, that exact question. I know a lot more about vaping now, so let's talk about it. So his build was a 26 gauge Kanthal dual parallel coil built at 9 wraps each with a 3mm ID inner diameter, and it was reading at 0.29 ohms. He thought that lower ohm builds equals faster ramp up time, so he's asking what's the deal. So there are a lot of different factors here. I would start with using an Ohm's law calculator. The one I always use is the steam engine calculator. And using a calculator like that, you can see what your amp draw and wattage output would be based on your build. So if we use that calculator and we look at this person's build using steam engine, we can start putting in his resistance, which is 0.29 ohms, and then we start getting some stats. So with a mech mod, you can only get as much voltage as the battery has charge. So with a fully charged battery, that's 4.2 volts. If you put that into the calculator, we get a calculation of 14.48 amps and 60 watts. That's as high as you can go on a single battery. That's a fully charged battery, and a mech mod doesn't let you go beyond that. So 60 watts, that sounds decent, right? So why would it be getting such a long ramp-up time? Well, you have to consider how much metal needs to be heated. 26 gauge Kanthal wire is somewhat thick wire, and this is a parallel coil. A parallel coil is 2 wires wrapped in parallel to each other to make one coil, and he's using 2 of those. So that's a ton of wire to heat up for only 60 watts. Even on a regulated mod, you'd probably need somewhere around 80 to 100 watts to heat that up. And with a mech mod, you're limited by the battery's charge, 4.2 volts. So the only way to quickly fire a build with that much wire would be using a dual battery mech mod that runs batteries in series, which would put out about 243 watts and draw 29 amps. That's just too hot and too dangerous to pull from 2 batteries. So my recommendation would be to use a regulated mod for that build. Okay, so how do you get fast ramp-up time on a single battery mech mod? Well, basically you need to use less wire. Less wire takes a shorter amount of time to heat up. That doesn't mean that you can't use intricate coil builds on your mech, but you'll need to use thinner, higher gauge wire or less wraps. You can also reduce the inner diameter of the coil. So let's say if we use the same resistance of 0.29 ohms, but use 28 gauge wire and reduce the inner diameter to 2 millimeters, we have much less wire to heat up, but we can still get 60 watts of max power. Or if we take 2 wraps off of that original build, original coil, taking us down to 7 wraps for each coil and less metal, the resistance will now be at 0.25 ohms. It will pull 17 amps from the battery, which is still safe on a 30 amp battery, and we'll get 70 watts. That's likely to be a much more satisfying vape. And something else to consider would be using different types of wire. For example, N80 nichrome or 316L stainless steel wire. Both wires can be used where you would typically use Kanthal wire. And in case you're wondering about nichrome, a lot of people confuse nichrome for nickel, and it's not all nickel. It's actually an alloy of 80% chromium and 20% nickel. It's not pure nickel like Ni200, and it's generally considered to be safe by the vape community to use on a non-temp control device. Nichrome can't be used in a temp control device. Stainless steel, on the other hand, can be used in both temp control and non-temp control devices. So first let's look at nichrome. If we use the exact same build as at the original example, 26 gauge wire, inner diameter of 3 millimeters, and 9 wraps of parallel wire, we now have a resistance of 0.24 ohms. So now we'd be getting 73.5 watts and drawing 17.5 amps from the battery. Stainless steel is similar. Again, using the original example, we have a resistance of 0.16 ohms. That would have an output of 110 watts. And it would pull 26 amps from the battery, so it wouldn't be very safe. But that's just an example of how stainless steel can get more watts using the same exact build as Kanthal wire. And one other thing to consider is spaced coils versus contact coils. Nothing will change in terms of resistance when deciding between the two. The only difference is that contact coils are wrapped tightly, and on each rung on a spaced coil is not touching. Some people say that spaced coils ramp up just slightly faster. In my own experience, I've really never noticed much of a change between the two, but you can experiment with that. As you can see, there are some things you can do to get faster ramp up time on a mech mod. You can't really do like crazy intricate builds without going super low, but you can experiment with the size of the wire, the mass of the wire, different types of wire, and things like that. And something else, if you're using a mech mod, you also want to make sure that all of your contacts are nice and clean, because that also can affect conductivity and performance as well. So yeah, that's it. Personally, I don't do any kind of intricate builds on my mechs, and not even nothing. No twisted wires or nothing. I just like to stick to basic spaced microcoils with a high gauge wire like 28 gauge, sometimes even 30 gauge. Because for me, I like instant ramp up. Like, I really like to get that coil firing right away, and I don't really get huge clouds like I would on a more high powerful regulated mod, but fast ramp up time makes for a much more enjoyable experience for me. So yeah, if you have a mech mod and you want to get fast ramp up time, experiment with some of those things. All right, so that's all I have for this week. Another short one. You'll find the show notes for this episode on VapePassion.com. Just do a search for episode 36. If you like the show, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. If you want to support the show, consider donating to my Patreon page. You can find that at patreon.com/VapePassion. Even if it's only $1, every little bit helps and it adds up. You can follow me on Twitter at VapePassion, and I'm also on Facebook. For podcast listeners, you can catch the video version of this show on YouTube. And for YouTube viewers, the podcast version can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play. You can subscribe to my weekly email on VapePassion.com that just lets you know when I have a new video up on YouTube, or if I publish any blog posts. And like always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me at alex@vapepassion.com. So that's it. All right, I'll see you next week.